Biden administration plans to continue to seek extradition of WikiLeaks Assange, and this is official. They're trying to overturn the ruling to not have him extradited.
Yeah.
And by the way, you would think that Joe Biden would try to be like President My Boss, Barack Obama, and not have him extradited. Even Obama didn't go that far, and Obama was abysmal when it came to press freedom.
Yes.
He was absolutely abysmal. Even he didn't go that far, though. The Trump administration did, and now the Biden administration is continuing it on. They're trying to get him extradited. And you know what's crazy? I bet if one of us sat down with Joe Biden, or anybody for that matter, it doesn't have to be one of us, and they asked him to explain the charges against Julian Assange, I bet you he wouldn't be able to. What do you think?
I don't believe he'd be able to either. I mean, because Obama made the point of like, this is a slippery slope. I mean, if you can go after Assange, you can go after pretty much any publisher. I mean, for God's sake, Washington Post, New York Times, The Guardian, all of those guys was running the stories that Assange and WikiLeaks were putting out. Why aren't they up for grabs?
Right.
I mean,
and the point is none of them should be. None of them should be.
Exactly.
But there's a gross double standard going on here. Like, oh, he published things that put people in danger. Well, the same thing The Guardian published, the same thing the New York Times published. Oh, he was hacking. There's no evidence of that, none whatsoever. And you guys have tortured Chelsea Manning to try to get a fake confession out of her, and she still hasn't done it. She didn't do it. So it's like, what charges do you have? They have absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's I mean, I think Gordon Dimmick was the person who tweeted this, but he said calling this a kangaroo court is an insult to kangaroos.
Yes.
And yet Joe Biden, they want to. And by the way, the reason they didn't extradite him, by the way, it wasn't because over in the UK they're starting to see how ridiculous this is. Yeah. This is a worldwide effort of being horrible, but they decided that the U.S. prison system is just too brutal.
Yeah, it's
which is true, by the way. But it's sad they weren't like, oh, this is absolutely ridiculous that we're even doing this.
No,
we're ending all of this right now. We're dropping all the charges, and we're going to give this guy a settlement so that he never has to work another day in his life. That's what should happen. That's not what's happening.
The judge basically agreed with the argument that the U.S. put up. But it's such a weird ruling, though. It's such an odd ruling. Like, she's basically, yeah, I agree with all this stuff, but he's autistic, and he would sit there and murder himself because the prison systems are such rape factories. And it's like, no matter how much they do to stop him in his rape factory, he'll find a way to kill himself. And so, yeah, we can't send him. As if Belmarsh prison is like laying on the beach.
Right. He's in terrible conditions. I mean, he's in conditions where there's been COVID outbreaks. Wasn't it like some of the walls were like rotted out, so people were freezing? And was it like he was like using books to like as shelter horrible. Kind of? I mean, it's absolutely horrible.
And the judge is like, yeah, we can't send them there because you guys are that much worse. God, man, I can't believe they're torturing this man like this. And let's just be very clear: the torture is the point, not to get him back to the States. The 7 years of him being locked in, him being in Belmarsh, him putting in a little glass cage. That's the point of it all. That's the point. The point is the torture and to make it look this is what happens when you go get fire. This is what happens. This is what happens. It's like, you got to take it in the teeth in order to show other people not to do that. And that's basically what they're doing. They do it for everybody. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, JFK, any of these guys that basically stand out of line in any particular way that runs up against this notion of empire. And JFK I shouldn't include him in the empire thing, but you get my point.
No. I get your point. The thing too, though,
torturing in public. That's the thing, point.
Right? Oh, absolutely. But the thing too, though, is if they do get him to the United States, it is game over because they can do everything behind closed doors completely, and they will. They're already, acting horribly now. I mean, the way the press has been denied so many rights as far as access to this whole thing. But there has been a little bit of transparency thanks to so many journalists and activists on the ground who demanded it.
That's right.
If it wasn't for them, we'd be even more in the dark. If it wasn't for, organizations out in the UK, journalists out there and journalists based here, the Action for Assange groups and Kevin Gustola, and all kinds of folks. I can't, think everyone off the top of my head, but if it wasn't for all of them being our boots on the ground in London and elsewhere, we'd know even less. But they have demanded some transparency. If they get him, Julian Assange, to the United States, it is game over. And we're not, there's a good chance we wouldn't even know what they did.
The only positive side, or it's not positive at all, it's part of the fact it's fucking terrifying, will be whatever they do to Assange. At some point, there'll be some strong man that would end up doing the exact same thing to the press because the precedent was been set with Assange. Meaning all of those news organizations that stand by and allow it to take place, they're going to get it in the teeth with the next dictator that decides for a push attempt in the United States and decide that the shit that they're saying goes too far. I mean, Obama was using the Espionage Act in these kind of weird ways to try to knock down people who are going after his campaign or going after certain information. I mean, think about it, Espionage Act. Not to mention setting up an agency in the White House to go after investigative reporters. I mean, this was the shit that Obama was doing. And so it's like, you know, they're literally going after a guy that was a publisher. Assange did nothing wrong. What he did wrong was piss them off. That's it. That's his crime. When exposing the CIA stuff, exposing the leaks, that was the thing. They were
fucking. He did his job.
He did his goddamn job.
He did his job.
And you know what's weirder? Why aren't the other news agencies in the Washington Post and New York Times being gone after like this by the government? Yeah. Did you think about that? Like, they're making a very explicit interest in Assange. And you think to yourself, well, if they're going after Assange like this, why aren't the other people under threat like that? And it makes you think maybe
because the other people, when the nuggets of truth do get out there, they are very heavily sugar-coated. Exactly. Or they're not in the headline. They're in the 7th paragraph, maybe. Exactly. But with Assange, he just publishes it and lets the public decide. And that's what they don't want.
Exactly.
That is what scares them.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your